Hey guys, it's Will.
And I'm Mike.
Very special episode here. Terrible Infant. So last year, 2019, we reviewed like 40-something movies. And so we thought it would be fun to do a list here. We picked our 7 favorite movies apiece that we reviewed in 2019. And there's a couple other things here that we're going to show off that didn't quite fit on the list. And then I think we did this a little bit differently maybe, but I tried to focus on stuff I haven't seen before. Did you do that too?
Mostly, yes.
Yeah, so there are some things that we reviewed that either one or both of us had seen before, and actually I have one right here, Double Impact, and I really wanted to put this on my list because I love this movie, but I was like, nah, I'm familiar with that movie, and it's kind of like cheating, because the idea behind this was, because our show is called First Watch, and so it's like, the idea is that it's a review, but it's also kind of a reaction, because you're just reacting to having seen the movie for the first time. And again, we do sometimes do stuff we've seen before, but we try to kind of focus on stuff we're unfamiliar with. So, we both have our lists, we have our stacks of Blu-rays. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Sure. The first film I'm doing is one that I don't actually have here because we watched it on Netflix, I believe. Yeah, It was on Netflix. And that is Savage Dog. It's a movie starring Scott Adkins, directed by Jesse Johnson, who follows us on Instagram.
Hi.
And I think we watched Debt Collector first, which is, so Scott Adkins...
We've watched like 4 of their movies.
So they collaborate a lot. And Savage Dog I liked because it reminded me a lot of the old school Van Damme movies where he's basically like this trained fighter and he goes and he fights people in like a pit
brutal,
thing. This is interesting because it's like there's all this other stuff that goes into it. There's like military. There's
a lot of historical stuff.
Yeah, there's exiles. There's all this cool stuff. It takes
place in like post-colonial, pre-Vietnam War, Indochina, basically.
And like he's there, and like British people are there, and there's other people there.
Keith
David's there. He owns a bar. So it's really fun. The fights, like you said, are brutal, savage.
Yeah, but it's like
there's some
you hear like brutal martial arts movie and. You are unprepared for what this movie is. Like,
it's a lot more violent than a lot of
Scott Adkins says, like we've seen a fair number of Scott Adkins movies.
And this one's up there in violence, but I thought the story's good. The action scenes were cool. The setting's really interesting. There's not a lot of films I can remember with that kind of backdrop. So
yeah, the world that it's set in is really interesting. Yeah,
so that'd be 7 for me.
My number 7. Silent Rage, which is our friend Logan's least favorite. He hated this movie.
I don't understand how you can hate it.
This, to me, is like the ultimate Grindhouse movie. It has Chuck Norris doing martial arts. It has like this sci-fi thing about reanimating dead bodies and turning them into killing machines.
Yep.
It's basically a slasher movie. And it's often jokingly referred to as Chuck Norris versus Michael Myers,
basically,
right? It has that like whole reanimator thing. It has one of the most amazing romantic subplots ever where Chuck Norris gets back together with his ex. Basically, like, he hits on her and she's like, it's never happening. And then in the next scene, they're having sex. And
repeatedly.
They're back together. Yes!
You can't say no to Chuck.
But if you want to watch, like, an 80s Grindhouse movie and, like, drink some beers and hang out with your friends and watch just, like, ridiculous...
It's fun, dude.
It's, like, action, it's horror...
And Charlie. Oh my God, Charlie.
Yes, and the bikers.
The bikers.
My God, there's a biker gang.
I don't want to spoil it. You have to go see this movie.
This is the Blu-ray that we reviewed. But seriously, I was surprised by how much I love that movie.
All right, so number 6 for me is a movie we do have, True Believer.
Yeah, that movie.
I had never heard of this movie when we got it, and then I was looking at it, and a lot of the films we get, it's like, who are these people in it? This has James Woods and Robert Downey Jr., a young Robert Downey Jr.
And Kurtwood Smith is in it.
And Kurtwood Smith. So this is like a bit legit, big budget.
It's like a studio movie.
Like a studio movie.
And that guy directed other really well-known stuff.
Yeah.
Like Denzel Washington was in one of his movies.
It was an actual legit movie, and I was surprised how good it was that I'd never heard of it, really.
Yeah, it's a legal thriller.
It's a legal thriller. It opens with... in prison, I believe, right? Or does it open before the prison?
I think, doesn't it open with the guy getting killed?
So there's a guy that gets killed on the street, and this, what is he, Korean?
He's Korean-American.
Korean-American guy is blamed, and he goes to jail.
But it's like a triad killing, so it's like immediately suspicious.
He goes to jail, and he has to join a gang to survive, obviously, and he's attacked by, I think, neo-Nazis, like white supremacist type, Aryan Brotherhood type people. And he defends himself, and he kills one of them, and this lawyer... who's played by James Woods, was this like big lawyer in the '60s, kind of hippie lawyer, took on like, environmental cases. He was a big shot, and now he basically
kinda like a
scum.
sellout. Yeah.
He protects like drug dealers and stuff like that, and he gets involved in this case. Robert Downey Jr. is like his assistant.
Yeah, he just out of law school, and he writes him a letter. And
he looks up to him from his past. So they get involved with this case. This case has like police corruption, witnesses, like
there's the neo-Nazis, like you said,
neo-Nazis, and it's like legit good. It's like well acted. It's well scripted. It's
just a really good
It's a
movie,
good legal movie. Really good.
And I don't know, like it came out in '89, right? So maybe Batman was that year. Like there were some big movies that year, and I wondered if they overshadowed.
Yeah, this is like what we would call nowadays like an Oscar type movie.
It's like a prestige film.
Yeah, it's like an Oscar type prestige movie with good actors, good plot, and like trying to get a message across. So my number 6.
At number 6, I have Happy Birthday to Me. Would you like this movie too? Didn't you?
I did like that movie.
This is a slasher film that's very early. It's like 1980, and I had never even heard of this. And it's a slasher film / mystery where you have this really awesome device of the protagonist has like problems with her memory, and so she is in this boarding school and she has a group of friends and they start dying. And she can't remember. She has these blackouts and can't remember where she is at certain times and where other people are. And it seems like maybe she's the killer or maybe one of her close friends is the killer. Yeah. And there's all like every single sequence basically has like a red herring in it. And you're like, oh, it's that person. No, actually, it's not. And the mystery is actually really well done. And this is like a semi-spoiler. When you find out who the killer is, you're like, what? And then I went and read online that they had originally filmed a different ending and it didn't work or something like that. So like, okay,
well, you find out who the killer is, but then you really find out who the killer is. And you're like, what is going on?
So, but like,
and it gets demented in the end.
Yeah, the ending is a little wonky, but it's not bad. Like it doesn't ruin the movie. Demented. But like it's just so well scripted and it's so well put together, and it's just like it's a really, really good slasher movie.
Yeah. All right, my number.
That was
5.
6.
So this is my number 5.
Yeah.
Is a film we've talked about a lot before.
A movie that we really love.
Hawaii. With our favorite Big O Andy directed it.
We need to get Big O Andy t-shirts.
We do. This film, what can I say? Should I open it like Will has done?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to show
my code.
They're going to steal your download code.
I know. I already used it. But anyway,
they can see it.
I already used it. I don't even, like.
What do you say about that movie? There's a guy
who said so much about it already.
Snakes with a rocket launcher.
There's a poison, like a mutated snake that comes out of a toy they shoot with a rocket launcher. There's a guy.
You can't talk about it without laughing.
There's a guy riding a skateboard on his hands with a blow-up doll who gets blown up with the rocket launcher, and then the blow-up doll gets blown up with the rocket launcher.
There's also like
a bunch of gratuitous nudity.
That's the one with. Isn't that the one with the subplot about like some sports tournament is happening on the island? Yeah.
This is one of those movies that, you have some friends over, you have some beers, you pop it in on a Friday night, you have a great time with it. And it's fun.
Andy Sidaris' movies are like, I think like, one of the most important things to own in your entire home, because every time someone comes to stay with you, you can be like,
it's a conversation starter.
Check this out, because it's like it's so. It's unbelievably insane that you can't believe it unless you watch it.
And it's like a good way for me to describe it is like it's offensively inoffensive. Like it's supposed to be offensive because there's nudity and gratuitous
but it's too ridiculous.
But it's too ridiculous, and like it has almost like an endearing quality to it because it's like it's fun. Almost none of the good guys ever die, or like there's no
They're
like
very rarely even in peril.
There's not like any like really dark subplots or anything. It's kind of light and airy and goofy and
there's
fun.
also
it's like old school James Bond, but like
But with nudity and 80s, and isn't this the one where the guy says to the woman, "Are you going to sit on my face?" And she says, "Why is your nose bigger than your dick?"
Like that. How can you not want to watch that?
And how can you not win an Oscar? He's never even been nominated for an Oscar.
That's all right. He revolutionized live sports.
He won a ton of Emmys because he revolutionized the way that live sporting events are shown.
And then he's like, "Screw this! I'm going to go have some fun and make some dirty movies." Can't blame him.
Man, that was 5, right?
5 for me.
So at 5, I have another Jesse V. Johnson, Scott Adkins collaboration.
That's a good movie.
Triple Threat. So I was like hyped on this movie for years because it was announced at least 2 years ago, I think. And it
has all your favorite people in it.
So Tony Jaa is in this, and I am a huge Tony Jaa fan. And if you don't follow Tony Jaa's career, basically like he had a string of really incredible movies, and then he went through a period of like he wasn't in movies for a while, and then he was making these kind of like epic what do you want to call it, like period pieces more than like contemporary martial arts movies, and he's made a comeback in like the last decade or so. So I was super excited for this, like pure martial arts ass whooping. Tony Jaa Iko Uwais from The Raid is in this. Tiger Chen, who is Yuan Wu Ping's protege, and he's actually Keanu Reeves' martial arts instructor. Michael Jai White is in this movie, who is awesome. He's
Atkins.
Just like amazing. Michael Jai White is so big.
He's a big
and he
dude.
fights Iko Uwais, who's like 5'6" or something like that. You're like, what's happening?
He's a big, fast dude.
Yeah.
Scott Atkins.
Yeah, Scott Atkins is in this. Michael Bisping. Jijai Yanin, Selena Jade, like the cast is huge.
Yeah, it's a good cast.
And it's almost like The Expendables if it were better and had all the best martial artists in it. That's kind of like what it is.
Like The
It's
Expendables is more about old school guns, and this is more about new school action, like fighting.
Yeah, and it's just like, and this is the so Wellgo USA is the company that put this out, and this is a dual format, so it has a Blu-ray and the DVD.
Nice.
And I actually bought this because. I bought it without seeing it, like just kind of pre-ordered it off of I think someone gave me a gift certificate to Best Buy or Amazon or something for my birthday, and I knew that was coming out, and I knew I really wanted to see it, so I just bought it. And I want to mention before we move on from Scott Atkins and Jesse V. Johnson, Avengement, which movie. I honestly like. Avengement is a better movie, I think, than Triple Threat in terms of the filmmaking and the quality of it and stuff like that. But I've already watched Triple Threat like 3 times in like 6 or 8 months because it's just one of those movies that's like so fun, and you just keep coming back to it, and like you don't have to think that much about it, and
enjoy yourself.
And Avengement is like a pretty bleak movie, and I won't ever be sitting around on a Saturday night like, hey,
I need to cheer myself up. I'm gonna watch Avengement.
Whereas if I'm like really tired at the end of the week and I'm like, I just need to throw something on, let's watch Tony Jaa whooping some ass. Like, I definitely put that movie on. Plus, there's that scene where Iko shoots Jijaa with
that was brutal. That came out of nowhere because up to that point there'd been like gunshots and fighting, and then just like horrendous gore out of nowhere is awesome. Okay. So that was what?
That was my 5. Yeah.
So this is number 4.
Yeah.
Number 4 is Hard Bodies.
Yes.
I'd never heard of this movie when we watched it, and this is a legit 80s Playboy movie, right?
More or less. So from what I understand about the history of this movie, it was set up as a Playboy Channel movie, and then they were like, that's too much of a regular movie to be a Playboy movie. But then it was like, well, it's too much of a Playboy movie, and I don't think it got much of a wide release.
There wasn't enough nudity to be like a skin flick, but there's too much nudity to be just like a standard
like
comedy.
A mainstream comedy, yeah.
So it fell into a weird middle thing. The plot is super simple and stupid. These 3 successful...
It's not stupid, it's amazing.
These 3 successful middle-aged guys, and I would say like what, mid-40s or so? Mid-40s. They've all done well in business, and I think they've sold their business, or they've taken time off and they've moved to
Venice.
I
think Venice.
In the summer, beginning of the summer.
Venice Beach, not Venice.
With the idea of they're going to get a nice house and they're going to go cruising and pick up chicks. So they think they're all single, they're all divorced or whatever, and they have no luck because like, you know, they're
like one's square. A cowboy, one is like he looks like Jason Alexander.
So we call him Jason, and then one's just like a business guy.
But he's like that guy's a dick. That's like the bad guy.
The bad guy.
Yeah.
But they're all out of their element, and they see this one guy who's like a local who's
on here somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this just blonde
who
dude.
basically just hangs out at the beach all day. You've known the type, but he's really charismatic, really does well with the women. But he
also he gets evicted from his apartment.
Yeah, and so they offer him a free room in their nice house if he helps them
and a bunch of money, don't they? Yeah,
and money if he helps them pick up chicks and get help them with their game, I guess. And so that's what the movie's about. And like, there's just all this shenanigans going on and all this nonsense.
Ridiculous shenanigans.
The Jason subplot where he's like this. Like we said, he looks like Jason
What's
Alexander.
What's his actual name?
And what is his actual name?
Michael Rapport.
Yeah,
remember, because we thought it was Michael Rappaport.
We thought it was Michael Rappaport.
Where is he?
And it's
movie?
not.
Yeah.
And he's that type, but apparently in the movie he has like the biggest penis in the world.
That's the subplot. Yeah.
And everyone wants to see it. And there's
they charge.
Towards the end, they set up a room and him in like a throne with a crown, and he's naked, sitting there with it on display, and women line up to go look at it, and like, and one of the guys sets him up and calls his mom, and his mom comes in, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And she like drags him out by the ear, and he's like a mama's boy, and he's like crying. It's the best thing ever. So,
and another
really fun movie.
Another fun bonus about Hard Bodies is that I recently watched all of the Gilmore Girls, which I hadn't seen like the first couple seasons before, but I never saw all of it. And they mentioned that multiple times on the because how they're always watching movies. The Lorelai and Rory, and the Hard Bodies.
It's just a fun movie.
Woo! Okay, I have to recover from that.
On a completely different
a
topic.
completely different note. Zombie, which you had seen before.
I'd seen once before,
and it's like a classic horror movie.
It's
and
a
it's
really
one of those
good
movies
zombie
that
movie.
when 28 Days Later and then Shaun of the Dead came out, that was like 2003 and then 2005, right? And there was like that big zombie movie resurgence.
Somewhere
and
around there.
The Dawn of the Dead remake came out, and so everyone was going crazy watching zombie movies, and that was when I was in college. So I was like, I think a sophomore or junior when 28 Days Later came out, and so zombie movies became like really big on campus. And I had some friends who were like big into like gore and zombies and stuff, and they all told me to watch this movie, and I just never did.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we now finally got it. So this is the Blue Underground release, and it's a 3-disc Blu-ray 4K remaster. It's got the movie, a butt ton of bonus features, which we watched, which were really cool. And then it has the score.
Which is really good.
Yeah, the score is really good for this movie. And then there's like a big booklet here, but I mean, this movie is just awesome. Like, what can you say about it? Like, it's an absolute,
It's a really good
classic
old school
horror
zombie
movie.
The zombies in it are not the fast moving zombies; they're the slow moving zombies.
But they're also not like the George Romero zombies are like you can tell that they're people.
These are like decayed, disgusting, gross
like
zombies.
worms coming out of their eyes.
They've been in the
like,
ground for a while. It's nasty.
And this is like it's like a super gory, disgusting.
There's
I don't know if you can see, but yeah.
there's an impalement of the eye scene that's really slow and disgusting.
And it's also like very well known.
But I think
for...
what the scene that most people know it for is the shark scene, where there's a zombie. They're like in the Caribbean somewhere, and so the water's super clear and not deep, and there's a shark swimming around, and then there's a zombie down there.
And it starts with I had forgotten about this until I went back and rewatched it. That scene starts with a woman doing topless scuba diving.
Yeah, for some reason.
Then the shark shows up.
The shark shows up, so she hides. But then there's a zombie walking around down there, and the shark attacks the zombie and bites it, and the zombie bites the shark.
And it's like riding on the shark.
And it's really cool because I think we read it, and they actually it's like a real shark.
Yeah, so the guy.
It's not a real arm, obviously.
The guy who is the zombie in that scene is the shark trainer, and they sedated the shark. They put the guy in makeup. They gave him a fake arm, and he's just riding.
And I mean, it's not like a 20-foot great white, but it's a shark in the water.
Tiger shark or something. Yeah,
it's really impressive. It's a really, really good movie. It's right up there with old school Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
Yeah, I would say like outside of the George Romero movies, this is the best zombie movie probably that I've seen.
Old school zombie movie,
and also probably the one that people talk about.
Because like I mean, I love Shaun of the Dead, and but it's a very different movie. This is a legit scary zombie movie. Shaun of the Dead is a comedy.
It's also like a very like Shaun of the Dead is a riff on.
This is a bleak movie.
Movies
too.
it's really bleak, but this is like an OG basically.
Yeah.
It's like a hugely influential movie.
Yep. So that was your 4.
So you're on
3.
3.
So I cheated a bit on 3 because I did a TV show, and I
left
did
TV shows off mine.
Charlie's Angels.
This is so good. It's so good.
I was surprised by how good this was, and this is the entire collection that we got.
Isn't it
it's
5
seasons? It's a bunch.
It's like hundreds of episodes.
This was back when there was 22 episodes a season, and I wasn't expecting a lot because I'd seen the movies with Cameron Diaz and Drew Barrymore, Lisa Liu.
I love those.
I saw both.
Well,
of
I
those.
never saw the second one. I love.
I saw the second one too. I didn't see the new movie that just came out recently.
Did anybody see that movie?
No. And I'd never seen the.
Do you think? Wait, hold on. Has Elizabeth Banks seen that movie? Do you
No.
think? Did she even watch it?
She's like, screw this fucking movie. I'm gonna go make another movie. I'd never seen the series either. Obviously, I'd heard of it.
Yeah, I mean it's like hugely famous.
Of course I've heard, but I'd never seen it, and so I was basing the series on the movies I'd seen, and it's really different.
It's not the same at all.
Because this is back in the 70s when this came out. It came out what 77 to 82.
Yeah,
I
something like that. Yeah.
The writers are really good on this series.
Really good writing.
If I looked, I'm guessing all these writers went on to work in a bunch of famous TV shows.
Because each episode is a self-contained mystery, but they're all really good.
And it's like a movie. It's like a short movie because the first one's almost like a full movie. It's like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the next ones are all an hour. But it's like it's really well written, and there's like all these twists and turns. It's basically like a little spy thriller because
they go undercover.
They go undercover to solve whatever case of the week it is, and they use whatever skills they have. So they always have some skills. Everything. They're good at everything. But it is well written, and there is turns, and there's red herrings, and there's twists.
It's very good.
And it's well acted for what it is. And the production values are really nice. It's on location. There's action scenes. There's a lot of characters. It's not like a low budget sitcom. This is like a legit big budget TV show, and I was amazed by how good it was. I just don't have time to watch all of them right now, but I'll probably get around to watching a lot more of it later.
I watched, I think, about half of the first season, and that I told myself I wasn't going to do TV shows. Otherwise, I definitely would have. And I also have Ultra Q here, which I'm just going to mention. I didn't put this on my list because I'm only doing movies, but this is like Godzilla meets the Twilight Zone, basically. And I think this was a little too weird for Mike, but
I liked Ultraman, but I didn't like Ultra Q too much.
I loved it. It's so weird. Okay, so that was your 3, right?
That was my 3.
My number 3 is going into the 1980s classic teen movie.
Yeah.
The Legend of Billie Jean. I just love this movie. I really like those coming of age 80s movies and those teen dramas and stuff like that.
This was a good one.
It's really, and it's like, so we post some stuff from this on Instagram, and somebody commented recently like that the setup of that movie was too preposterous for me to take seriously, and I'm like, of all the movies in the world that could be too preposterous for you to take seriously, like, I don't think that's that preposterous. Like,
no.
The setup of the movie is that Billie Jean, who's played by Helen Slater, who also played Supergirl in the early 80s, and then Christian Slater plays her brother. They're not actually related.
They're not related.
And the Christian Slater character has a moped. And they're basically like white trash, right? Like they live in a trailer.
Trailer trash.
They have no money. I feel bad calling them white trash because, like, when I think of white trash, I think of like, I usually use that term derogatively, and they're like good people.
Yeah,
but
they're
like,
not bad. They're
what you
poor.
would call white trash. Yeah, they're poor. They live in a trailer.
They're trailer park people.
Single parent home, right? So just their mom.
Can't even remember. I
think that their mom goes out on a date. No, and there's one scene where you see the mom in the beginning. And so these bullies basically from the school wreck Christian Slater's moped.
Yep.
And one of them's dad is a business owner. So Billie Jean goes to the dad and is like, "You owe my brother $600 or whatever." And then he tries to rape her, and then she shoots him. And then they go on the lam, basically.
Because no one believes them.
Yeah.
So they go on the lam.
Yeah, no one believes their story.
They
he's
meet
like
other friends. And
yeah, so it's like this kind of like mainstream version of punk rock.
She becomes like a cult hero.
Yeah, so it's interesting because they actually show a clip from Joan of Arc with Gene Seberg in it, and the Billie Jean character is very similar to Gene Seberg, like in real life, and how she was like, I mean, it's a little bit different, but Gene Seberg was like persecuted by the FBI, and like she became this kind of like messianic figure, just like to the youth and stuff like that, which also parallels the Joan of Arc story. So there's like all these like weird little parallels. But I mean, aside from all that, I just thought it was like a really, really good example of like an 80s teen movie.
Definitely coming of age movie, really good. All right, my number 2, completely another left turn from that, is Maniac.
Maybe a little bit different.
This is probably the sleaziest movie we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like of the sleaze genre. Basically.
Yeah, it's an exploitation film, and it's 1980, so it's an early one. I'd heard of this movie, and I'd never seen it before until we watched it together. And I wasn't expecting much. I was expecting just like a trash, slasher movie. But what we got was like kind of like a psychological thriller.
It's a really good movie, yeah.
It's actually well acted for this genre, which is surprising.
I mean, he was in The Godfather, wasn't he?
The actor, yeah. I forget his name. Joe Spinell.
Right?
Joe Spinell was in The Godfather and other movies. So he's a legit actor, and him and the director raised a bunch of money themselves to make this movie. And it tells the story of I forget his name now. I can't remember
his
anything
name either. Yeah.
But basically, he's obviously a crazy dude who has some problems.
Frank Zito.
Oh,
right, and Joe Spinell was like Stallone's friend, right? Yeah. So he's in like Rocky and stuff like that.
So he has a bunch of problems, and he hears like voices in his head.
I think his mom was abusive,
and so he goes around and he kills women, and he like scalps them, and he like puts it on like mannequins in his house and stuff. And so the story is about him on his rampage and acquiring victims and stuff like that. And it's interesting because at times he's just a complete monster, but at other times he's like very charming and like very different.
And you also see his psychological torment. So it's not
and towards the end you see him like completely break apart.
I watched
nasty.
When we watched this, I had just finished watching the first season of Mindhunter.
Yeah.
And I realized in watching Mindhunter and kind of understanding the history of when psychologists began to understand
this was
serial killing. This is like a very early example of, and it's an interesting film because it's really gory. Yeah. I mean, it's not disgusting, but it's like pretty gory.
Tom Savini head explosion scene is really notorious.
Well, and at the end, doesn't he have a nightmare that he gets cut to pieces or something?
Yeah.
But it's like
you're right, because
it's also kind of it handles the psychological stuff in a really
well, because
interesting way.
the term serial killer didn't really gain wide acceptance till like I think the late 70s.
Well, the Mindhunter stuff is like 75, 76.
Yeah, and this is and they didn't have and they were coining the phrase serial killer at the time, and this is 80, so this is really early on. Now, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone who's squeamish or anyone younger,
it's definitely a horror movie.
or anyone who doesn't like horror movies, slasher movies, that kind of stuff. Because it may not be gorier or more violent than like a Jason movie, but those movies are basically comedies. They're funny. This isn't a funny movie. This is a very disturbing, very serious kind of movie.
I think it was X-rated, right?
It had to be.
Yeah.
And it's a very serious, dark look at like a maniac. Funny enough, they did a remake of the movie.
With Elijah Wood,
With
right?
Elijah Wood, and I think they did a series, maybe? I don't know.
A TV series.
I think so. So this has gained a pretty big cult following.
Yeah. It's a pretty well-known, I think, cult movie. So we're on number 2, right?
Yep.
So I actually have a series of films, and we don't have the first one, which is my favorite, because I think we lent it to Logan.
Probably Logan.
And he never gave it back to us. He's always taking our movies and never giving them back. If you're watching, Logan, I'm going to text you and tell you.
Yeah.
Nemesis. The first Nemesis is my favorite one. This is Nemesis 2, 3, and 4. The first Nemesis is basically like a cyberpunk movie, but that also is obviously heavily influenced by John Woo.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because to me, Nemesis is like the missing link between John Woo and The Matrix. Because The Matrix obviously is influenced by John Woo, but there's other elements going on there too, and a lot of those things are in Nemesis. And obviously, like, The Matrix is pulling from anime, Ghost in the Shell. Like, I don't actually think that Nemesis is the reason The Matrix exists, but it was very obviously influenced by Nemesis.
I'm sure they've seen the movie.
And there's just so many awesome action scenes in Nemesis, like when he shoots through the floor and going down the mudslide. And so, Nemesis 2, 3, and 4 are a bit of a mixed bag. I loved Nemesis 4.
4 was interesting.
It's just like this ridiculous, like, muscle porn, cyber sex, like,
because 2, 3, 4 star different actors.
It's completely different. The first one is about a guy played by Olivier Gruner, right? Who they were trying to make like the next Van Damme, basically. Albert Pune directed all these movies, and I think he wrote them too. And he had done Cyborg with Van Damme. And the first one is like this, like, trench coats, sunglasses, like dual wielding pistols, like cyberpunk movie. The second one is a woman in the desert fighting a creature from the future that's chasing. It's like Predator meets Terminator, but in the desert.
But it's acceptable. It's not a good movie, I don't think. But it's the third one.
Number 3 is just kind of like what's going on.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell.
Skip number 3.
But if you watch, I watched the Albert Pune commentary for number 3.
Those are always interesting.
And he talks a lot about like, oh, you know, the movie had to be X number of minutes long to sell to the European market, and it screwed up the pacing. And we spent all our money on this thing, so when we tried to do this practical effect, it looked like crap. Like, he's pretty honest about
he's honest. Before was interesting, at least. They tried something different.
I loved the fourth one.
I know, because you love really weird, strange, bizarre, nasty things. And there's a lot of it in here.
Oh, man, it's true. So my number 2 is the Nemesis series.
Woo! Are we down to 1 already?
Number 1? Oh, no.
Oh,
Wait,
no.
now that I'm looking.
No. Oh, this is going to be pretty fun. My number 1 film that I think we reviewed is Malibu Express. I think this holds a lot of nostalgia for me because this got us.
Because that's your life?
No, this got us into big O Andy movies, right? We never seen an Andy Sidaris movie, and then we watched, I think.
We watched that Hard to Take Hawaii within like a week. Yeah.
I think we watched them like back to back, like one day and one day.
Yeah.
And so this kind of got us into that world. And this movie is so ridiculous and so funny and so like ridiculously good. There's just
we posted a clip from this on Instagram recently.
I'm just looking at it and I want to watch it.
I posted the gym scene recently, and people are like, what is this? This is genius. How have I never seen this before? This is the best movie ever made.
It's a movie that does not take itself very seriously.
None of his movies do,
and it stars this guy who's in the middle here, surrounded by the babes, and he's sort of like a private...
What did you call him? Magnum P.I.
With
what?
AIDS.
But why with AIDS?
Because in the movie he looked a little like
he's thin, but he's like cut. He's not like wasting away.
Beginning AIDS. Like he just came back from the doctor. But basically, he's a private detective who's hired by this wealthy old woman to come to her house and figure out what's going on between like a blackmail, death, some kind.
She's being like people in her house are being blackmailed by the butler, basically.
Yeah. And there's like subplots of like an evil software genius. There's subplots of his neighbors in the boat that he lives in who ran out of like water and they need to use
or
the
are
shower.
they just trying to have sex with him?
They just want to have sex.
Clear, yeah.
There's a race car driver that he's friends with that keeps showing her boobs. They're being chased by a helicopter and shot at, and she thinks the thing to do is to take her top off and to show it to the helicopter, thinking it'll go down. There's also these like 3 hillbillies whose dad used to race our main character's dad, and now they keep trying to. They keep stopping him and they force him to race them.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's just and there's a character in the mansion who is he's gay and he does like cabaret shows, right?
Well, I think he just gets in drag and goes out.
But he goes to shows. Like he doesn't. I thought he performed in shows at a club.
I can't remember.
But he's married to he's closeted and he's married to one of the women in the mansion and he has like the limo driver sneak him out at night with all his stuff in the bag.
Like I think he knows his wife is cheating, but he doesn't care because he's not interested in her at all. I think they actually have like an understanding, like they don't care.
But that whole subplot is really fun.
It's just fun.
So what do I have for number 1? Big ol' Andy Guns. This is my favorite Andy Sidaris movie.
Oh man, that's a good one.
So Eric Estrada is an arms dealer. Who I'm just turning around the download code, but yeah. So Eric Estrada is an arms dealer who buys Chinese machine guns, which you can tell are Chinese because they have a giant red star on them. They're Chinese communist machine guns. And the central female characters who are played. This is Donna Spear. This is Cynthia Brimhall. Roberta Vasquez she's my favorite, and she actually has a much bigger part than Cynthia Brimhall, but for some reason is not on the cover of the movie.
Maybe like Cynthia Brimhall was a more recent like
a bigger star or something like that. They're all from the Playboy channel.
Yeah.
But Cynthia Brimhall is a singer, and she plays like she's an undercover agent who is masquerading as like a cabaret, like a naughty cabaret performer in Vegas. And there's a scene where all the agents get together, and there's like 7 playmates at a conference table, like planning the demise of this arms dealer. It's so good. There's ninjas in this movie. There's bodybuilders. There's a toy boat with a grenade on
Explosion. There's a mirror.
There's cross-dressing assassins.
Cross-dressing assassins. That's the best part of the movie.
Who are not. They don't.
Cross-dressing assassins are the best part of the film.
The first time you meet them, they're just presenting themselves as like they have kind of like New Jersey, New York accents. They're like these paisans from like Staten Island, and then for some reason, for the whole rest of the movie, they're dressed as women. It's like no one ever mentions it.
And they really try with their makeup and stuff. Like they're really going for accessorizing with person stuff. Like they went all out. They're trying it. They even have bras on. I'm like, why? If you're faking it, why do you need the bra?
Because you need to have the fake boobs.
I guess, but they're amazing.
It's just incredible. And we love all the Andy Sidaris movies.
Yeah, we do. But I think those 2 stick out.
Yeah. So there you go. Those are our favorite movies that we reviewed in 2019. Now that we're in 2020, we're going to review a lot more movies. We'll get to another video like this.
I'm sure there'll be more of these. Yeah.
There are more Andy Sidaris movies on the horizon. There's 2 more coming out.
I'm sure they'll be up there
in March. So we'll see. My name is Will.
And I'm Mike.
Thank you so much for watching.